Yuka Royer from our business desk is here in studio. Yuka, the US and China, they've entered a second round of trade war. What's likely to happen next?
Well, more talks could be in store, but while Mexico and Canada want a reprieve at the 11th hour, a 10% additional tariff on all Chinese imports has officially kicked in. Beijing has hit back, but rather than imposing across-the-board surcharges, it took a more measured approach. Brian Quinn has the details.
The US-China trade war enters a new phase. With Donald Trump's latest round of 10% tariffs on all Chinese imports into the US coming into effect Tuesday, Beijing is wasting no time in retaliating.
The US tariffs seriously undermine the rules-based multilateral trading system, damage the foundation of economic and trade cooperation between China and the United States, and disrupt the stability of global industrial supply chains.
Among the measures due to take effect next week are 10% tariffs on U.S. crude oil, cars, and farm equipment, and 15% on coal and liquefied natural gas. China is also launching an antitrust investigation into Google. The U.S. tech giant's online platforms are already blocked by China's Great Firewall, but the new probe could affect the company's collaboration with Chinese phone makers via its Android mobile operating system. Two more American companies, PVH, which owns the clothing brands Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger, and Illumina, a biotech firm partnered with chipmaker Nvidia, have been placed on an unreliable entities list, threatening to restrict their access to the Chinese market. Meanwhile, new export controls have been imposed on tungsten. The super hard metal is critical in tech and weapons applications, and China controls 80% of the world's supply. Beijing has also followed through on its vow to file a complaint at the World Trade Organization against Trump's tariffs. Trump is seeking to pressure the Chinese government to crack down on shipments of fentanyl into the U.S. China's response, while varied, is being seen as an effort to leave room for negotiations to de-escalate a potentially damaging trade war between the world's top two economies.
Well, China has also said, Yuka, that it's set to file a complaint with the World Trade Organization.
The WTO, well, Beijing says that Donald Trump's unilateral decision to slap higher tariffs seriously violates WTO rules. Canada has also signalled it will lodge a complaint. Now, the World Trade Organization has just turned 30. It was created following Uruguay round reforms to facilitate global trade and covers not just goods, but also services trade and intellectual property. The organization, with 166 members, says above all it's a forum for negotiations and consensus building, but dispute settlement is also its main functions. Member states must participate in its proceedings.
But that dispute settlement system, it has been in crisis, hasn't it?
Well, since its inception, the WTO has handled more than 300 disputes through a system that could result in sanctions against the defendant. But that system has been paralysed for the past few years. Disputes are typically handled in 3 stages. First, through bilateral talks, and if it's not resolved, then a special panel can be set up to deliver a ruling. Each side can appeal this and go to the final stage, the appellate body, comprising 7 judges. Now, since 2016, the United States has been blocking new appointments to this body, arguing it overreached its mandate. As a result, it has had fewer than 3 judges since 2019, which has made it impossible to handle any appeals. Currently, 32 dispute panel rulings are in limbo. Now, China knows this very well, but it's still turning to the organization to really make a point that it's China that's respecting the established global trade order, and Washington is the one that's disrupting it.
In other news then, Yuka, Honda is eyeing a takeover of Nissan.
The two car makers, together with Mitsubishi Motors, announced back in December that they were discussing a possible merger through the creation of a holding company. In recent days, though, it emerged that Mitsubishi might back out. And on Tuesday, Japanese media reported that Honda is now proposing to make Nissan its subsidiary. Nissan has been struggling with weak sales and in November announced 9,000 job cuts and a 20% reduction in its production capacity worldwide. The takeover proposal is expected to face fierce opposition from Nissan, though, that's enjoyed greater control since Renault cut its stake in the car maker.
Let's take a quick check on the markets, Yuka.
Well, worries over trade battles continue to cast a shadow, but global stocks mostly rebounded this Tuesday after a North American trade war, at least for now, was averted. On Wall Street, the Nasdaq gained 1.3%, lifted by Palantir. The software and big data analytics firm surged 24% on upbeat earnings. Google parent Alphabet dropped 7%, though, after the closing bell, after it released its earnings. And that's it for business.
Yuka, thank you so much for all of that.